This is Fearless Careerist with Dr. Catherine Robert. On this episode, Catherine speaks with Dr. Kelly Cagle about her research and experiences in different forms of schooling, her unique solutions to balancing family and career, and her work in building both a successful consulting practice and the Parenting IQ podcast.
Well, we're going to be super authentic because there's no other way. If anyone who's listening has ever built a business, building is hard. And so there are a lot of learning curves, a lot of recorded podcast episodes where the mic wasn't plugged in, a lot of re-record conversations, and even products that you're trying to create. Because you're trying, when you are a business, creating a business, I just had to build from zero.
Here's Catherine Robert.
Dr. Kelly Cagle faced significant challenges throughout her education, starting with learning English during the 6th grade, which was her first year in the United States. Fast forward to her doctoral work about alternative education schools, and Kelly had good reason to question whether her same educational experiences in public school would serve her young family. Instead of pursuing a traditional school administrator role, Kelly and her husband Josh chose to homeschool their children, while Kelly launched her practice in advising families and parenting children with ADHD. Kelly is now a speaker, educator, and host of the Parenting IQ podcast, and she joins us here today. Welcome, Kelly.
Thank you so much, Dr. Robert. It's an honor to be here with you today.
Oh, thank you. Now, you've had experience in several types of schooling, including your doctoral work in which you studied school models that provide different types of learning experiences. Before we jump to your research, though, what was your entry point into schools in the United States?
That's a great starting point because it was a wide awakening experience for me once I became a mom. Because when I moved to America in 1998, I was 11 years old. And for those mathematicians, I'm sure you're doing the math of my age. But I arrived in this country with zero language proficiency whatsoever. In fact, my mom taught me 2 sentences before she dropped me off at school because it was complete survival. And she said, okay, you have to know this one thing. I'm sorry, I don't speak any English. Repeat after me. And so I'm like, okay, so people don't think I'm rude. And then the second sentence was, may I go to the restroom, please? And then she said, okay, have a great day at school. And so that was my experience. I was in the most sheltered environment. However, I will add this. Despite arriving here with zero language proficiency, whenever the school counselor looked at my transcript, she said, okay, well, based on your age, which I had a translator, based on your age, you can go into the second semester of 5th grade because I had just finished 4th grade in Brazil. I came here in December. But based on my transcript from a third world country, that, when you think of education, you would suspect is lower. But I could go into the second semester of 6th grade.
Wow.
So, of course, that's what I chose. So I never took 5th grade. I skipped a year and a half of school when I first came. But then my high school experience was similar, that I had a friend who asked, hey, she was also Brazilian. By then I spoke enough English. We've been here for a couple of years. And she said, Kelly, I heard of this opportunity that if we finish all of our credit hours that we need for graduation, then we can graduate a whole year early and get, I can't remember if it was $1,500 or $2,500 for community college. And I was like, let's do it. So altogether, Dr. Robert, I skipped 2.5 years of school in the American education system. So that
Wow.
was the beginning of my journey in this country.
So skipping it, but how did you do with learning English and navigating the public school system as a student without knowing the language?
So I watched a lot of PBS when I would get home from school. I would watch Arthur. I don't know. You probably remember
Arthur's
Arthur.
Birthday, yes.
And it was such a cute show. And so I would watch that. I would watch Dragon Tales. It was very rhythmic. And so I would sing along with the songs. And at first I would just repeat, but then I would see the images, which were simple, and connect the dots. And so I told myself that I was not I really wanted to learn the language. I did not like not understanding what was happening. And so it was kind of like this self-drive, self-motivation of
Mhm.
I can't make any friends. I'm 11 years old. This is like pivotal moment of, tween years and that the teen stage of trying to belong and figure out who you are when you look at development.
Mhm.
And I said, I will learn. And so kind of made up my mind, and I listened to some of the songs that I would listen to, and I thought that's what I was saying, and it was completely off. I just really wanted to learn because we were going to be here, so I was going to be able to communicate.
Yeah. Yeah, I can't imagine not being able to talk in 6th grade. I think I opened my mouth on day 1 and talked nonstop for at least that full year, if not
Mhm.
the following 2 years after.
Right, right.
Okay. So what made you wanna leave high school in 3 years? Were you not enjoying the experience, or what was the motivator to finish early?
Well, it's not that I wasn't enjoying the experience, is that in my mind, I was going to school to get a degree. It
Mhm.
was never about fun. Like, I'm not here to have fun. I'm here for the job I have to do. And so, school for me was about finishing classes, which, mind you, you may see that I have a PhD and think, oh my gosh, this girl's really smart. No, 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 especially chemistry. I couldn't understand. I'm learning English. How in the world do you expect me to learn the language and the content? That was too much for me. And
Mhm.
yet the teachers all loved me because I was kind and helpful, and I always wanted to be the teacher's pet. And so
Mhm.
they probably just said, this poor girl who is trying to make friends, is in this new country, new culture, all of the things that are so different. The teachers were extremely kind. So it wasn't that the experience wasn't enjoyable. It was just that I was there to finish school. And so get that
Okay.
check mark.
Yeah. Okay. Did you know what you wanted to study once you got out of high school?
All I knew is that I wanted to help people. So I said, you know what? I love people. I've always loved people. I'm going to go be a teacher. My grandmother was my first grade teacher. My mom was my teacher at one point or another. And so I kind of assumed from then, because it was 9 days after my 17th birthday that I walked across the stage. So from then on, I assumed I would be a teacher.
Did you go straight into a standard public university? What was your next step?
No, I took a semester off, and just because I was so young, I didn't know exactly what I assumed I was gonna go be a teacher, but I wasn't too sure.
Mhm.
And, my sister-in-law had gone to this missionary school. It's called Youth of the Mission, and it's international, and she's from Brazil as well, and she had attended the school in Brazil, and she goes, "Kelly, I really think that you would enjoy it." So there was a close one to where we live, that relatively close. And so I asked my parents, "Hey, what do you think about me going to this after high school?" And my dad's a pastor, has been an ordained pastor since I was 10 months old. And so he's like, "Absolutely, do it." So that's what I did for 6 months. And I grew quite a bit there because I hadn't even ever done my laundry by myself up until that
Mhm.
point.
Mhm.
And I did that for a little bit. And once I fit, and that's actually where I met my husband. So I was 17, he was 19 when we met and started dating. And then after that, we came back home.
Mhm.
I say we because he ended up getting a job, and I came back home to I started at a community college.
Okay, great. And then after the time at community college, you transferred to a public university, four-year school, right?
During that season, I got married, we bought a house, we became adults overnight.
Wow, that's
And yes,
fast.
yeah, we did things really fast.
When you know, right?
What you just can't help it, you know? So, yeah, we were newlyweds, and we would sign up for classes. Of course, I would sign up for classes for him, and I'm like, "Hey, we need to go get our education." And so I signed us up for classes, night classes, and so we did all of that during before our associates, leading up to our associates. And then at separate seasons, separate times, went and got our higher education.
Oh, okay.
Full
So you
Yeah,
took turns.
we did.
Okay.
Yeah, we took turns because we were both working. Obviously, we had all of the bills like a regular adult, but we wouldn't qualify for FAFSA, which still, I don't even know. It was just the silliest thing
Mhm.
that we never qualified for it other than like $2,000 here and there, which, college is not cheap. But Josh and I just ended up taking turns. He stayed and worked. Once we got to it was time for me to get my undergrad.
Mhm.
And so again, my goal was to get in I went to University of Texas at Arlington to get in and get out as fast as I could. So I would have to go visit with the dean for the dean to override more hours than what's
Mhm.
allowed. So I was like 18, I was maxing out at 18 every semester just to get out of there. And so yeah, about a year and a summer and
Mhm.
I had my 2-year degree.
And did you do the traditional path to be a teacher?
No, no. Okay, so to my point, because I had quit work,
Mhm.
that we couldn't afford to go through the traditional path, which required you to do a full year of the student teaching experience. We couldn't afford that. And so I ended up knowing that I was going to go the teacher route. I got a degree in speech communication.
Mhm.
And then in the meantime that I was finishing up my undergraduate studies, I already applied to go through a alternative certification method.
Okay. So you found a way, but you just had to do it,
I
in an
did.
affordable way, right?
That's right.
So you finished your teacher certification and then got a job as a Spanish teacher in a public high
High
school.
school.
What did you think of the job of a teacher?
Honestly, I loved it. I had so much fun. I tell my son my oldest son who's now 14, who is the age of the students that I taught.
Mhm.
Levi is his name. So Levi, I just had so much fun teaching those kids. And honestly, the more challenging ones were my favorite ones because it made it even more entertaining. The ones that always pulled out their notebooks and were ready to start taking notes, those are they're the easy ones for me. Give me the harder ones because I want to get everyone engaged and everyone interesting. So my class was often quite chaotic, but with a lot of very high engagement and we
Mhm.
just had fun. And so that's why I chose Spanish in particular so I could have a lot of options because that's,
Mhm.
you need that's very needed as here in Texas, but also so I wouldn't have to deal with the test, the
Oh, yeah, with
standardized
the
test.
state testing, which
Mhm.
time was probably that was the peak time of state testing, and I know it's
Mhm.
been dialed back since then. Okay, 2 years later, you changed schools and you became, both a teacher and a coach. That must have
Mhm.
been a brutal schedule. And you had
That
kids at this time, right?
Yeah, I had one. He was Levi.
Uh-huh.
He was around 2 when that crazy season of our life started. And yeah, it was a lot. It was exhausting. It was 5 a.m. wake up calls and getting back home about 7 p.m. And that was when we didn't have games.
Mhm.
So that was a blur. That was a blur season. And so we decided to dial back and have a mom back in the house after 2 years of doing that. But it was a lot of fun. Those girls, I coached volleyball and soccer, and some of my core memories in my teaching days, my lunch, every day, I never ate lunch by myself because my
Yeah.
room always had the girls in my room and talking and asking questions that they wanted to ask their parents, but didn't want to ask
Mhm.
their parents. So
Uh-oh.
I was a safety net for them, and it was a great time. And I stay in touch with a whole bunch of them still.
Okay, great. Well, after balancing teaching and raising your young family for a few years, you decided to pursue a master's degree in counseling. What led to that?
Those lunches with those girls and those moments in the classroom where I knew I wanted to really that child needed a little more help, and I didn't have the time because I had to teach.
Mhm.
And so I was like, "You know what? I'm gonna go and get this counseling degree so I can go step away from the teaching duties
Mhm.
and have more of that opportunity to guide the students in career choices and school decisions and their
Right.
life and what they're walking through." So that was the goal.
Right. The goal. Okay.
Yeah, the
Then what
goal.
happened?
I did my internship at, elementary school, And as I mentioned previously, I never took fifth grade. So I had never been inside an elementary school in America. So I didn't know what to expect. No, I had seen pictures of the little desks and tiny chairs and all of it, but I had never personally seen that. So I was excited to step into a different environment and get to experience that. But I know that there are so many interventions and early things that those early years school counselors get to do. And there was an experience for me that just kind of marked me, and I wanted to give it a whole lot more attention
Mhm.
than the supervisor I had at the time that he could even manage, because there are so many. There's one school counselor for 300-400 students. There's only
Right.
so much you can do. So
Right.
I quickly realized that the idea that I had in this perfect world of what a school counselor did
Mhm.
wasn't realistic.
But you had students that you were wanting to provide more attention to as a counselor in training?
Yeah, I just saw certain things that were big red flags for me that I felt like needed, that were priorities.
Mhm.
Like this is a life situation that needs to be tended to.
Mhm.
And again, because of it was a joke during my master's program amongst the students. It was other duties as assigned. And they
Mhm.
cover all of these duties under that blanket of other duties as assigned. And there were
Right.
so many things
Right.
that the supervisor had to manage and juggle. And he did a fantastic job. The students
Mhm.
loved him, but that there were certain things that in my mind, being trained, I quickly learned that you are overworked and overloaded in areas that aren't super, and I don't wanna say super important because they are important, but in
Right.
this one particular time, it was like this student really desperately needed attention, and he
And
just
she didn't get it.
she did not get it.
Oh, it's heartbreaking. Heartbreaking.
Yep.
All right, but after completing your master's, instead of going into counseling, then you went straight into a doctoral program.
Mhm.
What is your main takeaway from your research that you did at that time into schooling options?
Oh, man, that season of my life was super cool, and if some of the cohort members are listening to this episode, I know that you're gonna recall. I walked into this room, Dr. Robert, and you likely remember, and I'm this at the time, I had had my 3rd baby, and he was 5 months old. Literally, the first day of class, I had a 5-month-old, a 2-year-old, and a 7-year-old. So my life was already a blur because what is sleep? And I'm nursing this baby. And I would have to pump before I left the house, and I would leave it with my husband, and we would like high five each other. Our life was chaos. However, I was in the room with highly educated, highly driven professionals who had big goals and aspirations
Mhm.
for their PhD in K through 16 educational leadership and policy studies. And then here I am when it was my turn. Hey, what is your goal with your degree? I'm like, well, I don't really have one. I just want to help people. I always went back to this desire to help people. And I was already doing alternative methods with our kids. At the time, I was not homeschooling, but we were part of a charter school.
Mhm.
And I'm in a room with, K through 12 traditional public school teachers, administrators, and community college admins and higher education people, and everyone looks at me kind of like I'm the black sheep in the room
Yeah, you were
because
the
everybody's
only
doing
one, I think, involved in
the
the charter
only one,
school. Yeah.
the only one in charter. And then the following year, I was again the only one who was doing a small Christian university model school that's again very non-traditional. So even coming up with my dissertation committee, I had to be specifically looking for individuals who had more of an open mind
Mhm.
because to look at education through curiosity curiosity through this lens of maybe there are other ways of doing things. So I
Right.
even had to be
Right.
strategic in that, in coming up with my committee and inviting
Mm.
my committee. And so that was a season of my life that I just had a lot of questions. A person that I was walking out as a mom,
Mhm.
but also as a professional.
Right.
And I didn't have them. I I just started researching, and I just started talking, and I started asking questions, and I read a lot, and had incredible support and guidance from fantastic professors that were willing to go there with me and raise my curiosity and throw more resources at me. So it was a very stretching season
Mhm.
that where I kind of felt like I was, all alone with my thoughts, but it worked out great.
Awesome. Yeah, and to our listeners, it was a loaded question because I was one of the professors
That's right.
For Kelly's cohort, and I was very honored to participate in your committee. It was a
Mhm.
lot of fun to work with you, specifically because of your willingness to consider um, life outside the traditional, right?
Mhm.
So that
Yeah.
was
So
it's
thank
still
you.
a fun conversation to have, right?
Mhm. Yeah. No, you were fantastic and continue to be that support in all of my crazy endeavors and my thinking outside the box because
Yeah.
it really does take other professionals who are willing to go there.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, good. I'm glad. Although I love to also be your pushback as a
But
representative of public schools in the past.
100%
Yeah,
right there with you.
I've been in multiple educational environments myself, right? I've worked in public and private now, but and attended public and private both. But yeah, I kind of will always my heart leans toward the public space only because it meets the needs of the vast
Well,
majority of people,
here's
right?
here's the thing, Dr. Robert, and I say this often to my audience and to on social media and even the podcast. You will never ever hear me choose one method over another
Right,
because homeschooling is not for everybody.
right,
Because if you have an only child, it could be a very lonely environment for him or her. If you are a working parent, it could be that it's so
right.
much that you're not providing the best environment and best stretching opportunities for your child. Same thing with private school. It is not the best. There is public school. Every method has its pros and cons. And
Yes,
so to me, it's a huge red flag when you have people that say, this is the only way, follow it. I'm like,
yeah,
no, sorry, not going to follow it. I
yeah,
want to follow what's best for my family. And
right,
so, to your point, just stay curious and research, look things
right.
up, have an open mind to see what is the best fit for you and your family.
Awesome. So I remember those conclusions from your dissertation, and it's exciting to see you put that into practice in your chosen profession. So that's exciting. So instead of jumping back into this traditional path of going back to work as a school administrator, you chose to build a business to help parents and with children facing ADHD or attention
Mhm.
deficit hyperactivity disorder. How were the first couple of years?
Well, we're going to be super authentic because there's no other way. If anyone who's listening has ever built a business, building is hard. And so there are a lot of learning curves, a lot of recorded podcast episodes where the mic wasn't plugged in, a lot of re-record conversations and even products that you're trying to create because you're trying when you are a business creating a business. I just had to build from zero. I literally graduated in May of 2021 and started writing that summer for the business. So I even had to take a pivot in my writing practices, which I've been writing academically for the past 3 years.
Right.
And whenever you're trying to speak to parents, well, they're not all of them have doctorate degrees. And so I'm having to restructure. And this is the joke my husband would always tell me, Kelly, not everybody is a nerd. You have to bring it down a level. I'm like, oh, okay. So the
So they don't care
learning
about
curve.
APA formatting? What?
No, not at all. And even to this day, when I work with people, whether it's like with my son, he's having to write a certain citation format, and then I'm working with literary agents, and I'm like, how do you want me to cite this? And if I'm submitting articles to this, well, what kind of citation am I using? And everyone is always blown away. Oh my gosh, thank you for asking this question. This is actually
Aw.
exciting. So I will add that you have to decide from the get-go your audience. And then this
Mhm.
is just my learning curve in this building situation. So we knew that my audience would not all be highly educated individuals, and so I had to step back. So
Mhm.
that was a big portion of the past 3 years, learning.
Right. Okay. Well, you like to learn, right?
I love to learn. You're right. I love to learn.
Okay. Well, throughout your career, you've been fearless in eschewing the norm in favor of setting your own path. How have you managed that when the money isn't always there to leave a job or, to do something a little different?
Well, I think that it's always about I've used the term staying curious very, very, very often here in the past 30 minutes.
Right.
And that is just a core value, if you will, of Josh and I. So from the very beginning, we got married young. That's already not the norm. There are a lot
Right.
of families who say, hey, you need to have a job, you need to have a degree, you need to, and there's this list of requirements. And we kind of started early saying, hey, our parents support us. We are doing this. And we bought a house and again started making all of these grown-up decisions.
Right.
And it was all based on choices that Josh and I would look at our options and say, okay, well, what is it that we want right now? What is going to serve us best right now? And even I brought up earlier the fact that I quit work to go to school.
Hmm.
Even we looked at those options and we said, okay, if I quit, here's what I can do. Here's how long it would take me to complete this amount of hours and get a degree and then get a job versus if I stayed in this job making X amount of money,
Right.
which one is the biggest payoff? And so we've managed everything by examining our ROI, our rate of return. All of the decisions that we've made have been based on, well, is it worth us giving up this income to do this? Well, is it worth us buying this car or this car? Well, is it worth us paying this off or investing here? So it's these weighing off of the where you are, what really belongs on your plate in your life with the things that you're committed to and saying yes to. Because if something gets our yes, then it's going to get our yes. And Josh and I are going both feet in and head first. Like we are in. You
Right.
have our commitment. And so, and if it doesn't, if it's wishy washy, then it's not worth it for us.
Right. Right.
So I think that when it comes to making decisions, again, going back to, is it worth it? Is this what we want? Does this belong?
Right. Right. It's interesting that you were both able to do that, in your early 20s. That's
Well,
and continued doing that.
that was again a lot of fights, a lot of learning curves, a lot of discussions, a
Right.
lot of reading, a lot of talking to people. We didn't learn it. We were just, gosh, I don't know. Do you know the Enneagram? Have you ever heard of the
I have
Enneagram?
heard of it, but yeah, I don't know much.
Okay, so Josh is an 8. So an 8 is very loyal, is very like hard going, harsh and strong and like we're going to do this and we're going to fight justice seekers, right? And then I'm a 3 and the 3 is the achiever. And so
Mhm.
as the achiever, you're like, give me a to-do list. We're going to do it because we're going to achieve. We're going to conquer the world. So a combination of a 3 and an 8 is really strong, like really
Explosive.
heavy. Yeah, very explosive. Yeah. And so it's don't compare it. Like this is not about comparing.
Right.
This is just Josh and me and what we have done. It's not for listeners to be like, oh my gosh, this couple at 20 could do. No, we were explosive. We fought a lot. We slammed doors. We did a lot of things wrong, but then we did a lot of things right,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
now we're 20 years into our marriage and here we are still getting things wrong,
Yeah.
still trying to figure life out and yet still being super intentional about decisions.
So he's been your bedrock throughout developing your business. Nonetheless, it was the hard first couple of years, right? What do you want to talk about getting picked up by a major network?
Oh, sure. I would love to. Yeah. Whenever the first years, I released the podcast April of 2022. and recording to the tiny audience of likely five, who were Josh and mom and dad and my two best friends,
Right,
and
right.
then the following week would be another two. And we celebrated every little win. I remember setting up my Instagram account and literally coming into the kitchen. To this day, I remember who my 100th follower was. I'm like, we have 100 followers. This is such a win. And so we celebrated every little win. Of course, Josh is always, okay, well, how can we have more? What, like, how can we do more? And I'm like, I know, I'm trying. We're doing, but we were building. And this is what we do. And so it gets to a point that it's really tiresome. It's pretty
Right.
exhausting
Yeah.
whenever you have a lot of work that goes into something with very little return. Now, it is common because it is a business and businesses have to make money. So whenever you look at measuring, right, the metric of success typically is tied to a financial or a monetary success. But for a long time, we had, as growing a business, starting a business, we had to look at alternative methods of metrics of success. Like,
Okay.
how are we going to measure our success? It has to be just beyond numbers, because podcasting takes a long time
Yeah.
before you start monetizing it.
Right.
And I got tired. I got tired about a year and a half later. And this was September of 2024. And I was actually on the phone with my sister, and I'm pacing around my pool because this is what I do. I multitask a lot. I habit stack. If you've read James Clear, Atomic Habits, you know that he
Yes.
is all about habit stacking. So
Yes.
I'm a big habit stacker. And so I'm pacing around my pool, talking to my sister, and she's asking how things are going. I'm like, I'm getting really tired. If something doesn't change by the end of this year, this was 2024. Something doesn't change, I'm done. I'm tired. And that day I told Josh the same thing, and he's like, "Okay, that's fine. Like, you tried, you've had a good run, you've been working really hard." So I had a podcast interview, and the host said, I had done my due diligence in knowing about who the host was and who
Mhm.
the network was and all of the research that the back end research that goes into things. And I said, "Hey, by the way, I saw that your headquarters is here in the Dallas area. I'm local. If you ever want to meet for coffee, I would love to meet up." And she said, "Well, I'm not local. However, the editor of the network is. Let me get you in touch with her." I said, "Great." Had no idea what was going to come from this. I have coffee with the editor, and about a month later, I ended up being invited to join the podcast network, the Christian Parenting Podcast Network. And for me, going back to talking about how you're measuring success, that
Mhm.
was a huge, like, open door, swinging doors wide open. Couldn't have a clearer sign
Right.
that I needed to stick to it.
Yeah.
And so Josh and I knew right then that was it. Like, we're not even talking about looking for a job just because I was tired. We're not doing any of that. We are done with that pursuit. We are committing to this. This deserves our attention, our really solid
Yeah.
devotion. In November, we celebrated a year of being part of the
Congratulations.
network, and it's been incredible.
Isn't it exciting to be part of a group versus speaking into an echo chamber? But
100%.
yeah, yeah. So instead of days and days of just talking into your computer, you actually get to see people and talk to people
Mhm.
about shared goals, and
Yeah,
that is
it's incredible.
exciting. What advice do you have for young professionals who are looking for their own unique path rather than accepting kind of a cookie cutter approach of, okay, I just graduated with my degree, now I'm going to go get a job? If they want to do something different, what do you think?
Yeah, I think that's such a great question. And I think that needs to be the starting point,
Hmm.
is if you want to do something different that's not cookie cutter, you have to start with your purpose. Because
Yeah.
above money, there is no amount of money that can buy happiness. There is no amount of success that is going to bring you that true. At the end of my life, I
Hmm.
lived it, and I lived it to the fullest, and I feel like I accomplished. I feel fulfilled,
Right.
right? You can go and do a lot of different things that will bring a whole lot of money, but fulfillment is different. Impact is different. And again, you're going to have to measure it very differently. So if you start with your identity, with your core purpose, and I'll give you a resource. I took a weekend and I read Living Fearlessly by Jamie Winship. And
Okay.
I read that book. It's a really short, easy read book. And it happened to be that I was home alone.
Mhm.
Josh had taken the boys camping and I'm home by myself. And I took a weekend and I read that book and
Right.
I did the work. Like I cried, I laughed, I journaled, I sang, I danced, I cooked, I worked out. I lived it while I dug deep into me, my
Right.
purpose.
Right.
And after that weekend, I know who I am. And if I'm doing this thing every single day of my life until the day that I die, I'm fulfilled because I'm focusing more on my impact
Mhm.
than any other metric that the world tries to flash at me. So I think that starting with your purpose is really, really big. Then another one, I want to throw out another resource.
Okay.
And, the early 2010s was this minimalistic movement.
Right.
And Marie Kondo came out and all these different individuals started talking about minimalism. There's a book by Greg McKeown. In fact, I'm rereading it right now because it was that impactful. It's called Essentialism.
Okay.
That book is a fantastic resource whenever you do figure out your purpose
Right.
and then you're narrowing it down to Dr. Covey, the
Yes.
7 habits of highly effective people. And he talks about the 80-20 rule that
Right.
everyone gets so overworked and distracted by the 80 when, the 20 is the really potent, important,
What you need
like,
to focus on. Yeah.
uh-huh. Same thing. The essentialism is focusing on this.
Mhm.
Get rid of all of the distractions. Everybody, whenever you're trying to build something, is going to have advice for you.
Right.
Okay. You're going to have to do your due diligence. And that's why I love this resource by Greg McKeown,
Mhm.
Essentialism, because he is helping you walk through that process of what does really belong on your plate. And I've
Mhm.
done that same work with Joshua Becker. He's another minimalist who's actually a father. And so I'm like, Josh, help me set up my home so it
Right.
also feels like what truly matters is here.
Right.
There are other individuals who have amazing mindsets in different areas of life. But
Mhm.
if you take that
And so that helps
essentialism.
you it helps you clear not necessarily physical clutter, but the mental clutter and the things kind of cluttering up how you plan your family
Mhm,
events and your career choices, right? It helps you just kind of think through those decisions in a more simplified manner,
mhm.
all tailored to that goal, right?
Yeah, yeah, that's right.
Well,
So then all the decisions align, because
right,
then they really belong to that vision that you set for your life, for your
right.
family. I think that that's purpose, that impact is greater than a lot of other different forms of success.
Dr. Kelly Cagle, it has been a true pleasure having you as my guest. Thank you for sharing today.
You are so welcome anytime.
To learn more about Kelly's speaking, consulting, and her valuable resources for families, see the link in our show notes. Kelly's Parenting IQ podcast is available through her website and everywhere you enjoy your content. I'm so excited that you're here. And remember, you're not alone on your career journey. Together, we can share our stories, move boldly into that perfect job, and we can light the path for our future fearless careerists. I'm Catherine Robert, and I can't wait to hear your story.
Fearless Careerist is available on Spotify, iTunes, and YouTube. Subscribe there or visit us at CatherineRobertEDD.com.